Right, good morning. We're up to Siman Reish Lamed Gimel, Sif Aleph. Interesting, important Sif. Mi shehispalel tfilas ha-mincha la'achar sheish shois u'mechza u'lemala yotza. We're talking about when is the correct time for davening. What is the zman tfilas mincha? So says the Mechaber, someone who davened sheish shois u'mechza u'lemala yotza. Now let's use that's half an hour after chatzos. That is the earliest time for mincha. That's called mincha gedola. So he says that's b'diavad yotza. That's his yotza, his chiyuv of mincha. For ikazmana mitesha shas umechza. But the ikazman, says the Mechaber, is teisha shas umechza, is mincha katana, 3.5 hours, 9.5 hours into the day. So again, on a 6 to 6 day, it gets light at 6 and gets dark at 6. We'll see exactly what that means. But chatzos will be at midday. So the first time for mincha gedola is chatzi shah mechza, sheishas umechza, 12:30, and then the mincha katana will be at 3:30. So lechatchila ikazmana, says the Mechaber, is teisha shas umechza, which is mincha katana, which is 9.5 hours, which will be 3:30 p.m. in the 6 to 6 day. Or lemala ad ahalayl rabbanon. Now, from then until night time, according to the Rabbanon, Rabbi Yehuda ad plag ha-mincha. There's a famous machlekes in brachos. When can you daven mincha till? The Rabbanon say until Laila, and the Rabbi Yehuda says until plag ha-mincha. Now, what is plag ha-mincha? So you take that second section from 3:30 till 6, let's say, from 9.5 hours till 12 hours, and you split it in half. She'u'ad sof yud aleph shois chos revia, which is a quarter of an hour less the 11th hour. So in other words, it will be in a 6 to 6 day, 4:45. The u'masharin shas eilim, when we talk about these hours, says the Ramah, lefi inyan hayoim, va'af im hayoim orach masharinan le'yud beishas. You just divide the daytime hours into 12. V'hem nikroy shois manias, and that's what we call shois manias. We always use this shas manias, which means halachic hours is the best translation of them. So whenever you see Seifman Kriya Shema is at 8:39, or Chatzos is at 1:07, or whatever it may be, now you know why. It's because you take the 12, the daylight hours, whatever time we'll see, whether it's alois or whether it's nates, until either shkia or nacht. And then you just divide it by 12, and that gives you what a shas manias is. Okay, let's just do the Mishnah till there. Sheis balel. The tfilas ha-mincha keneged Thomas Rabbeinu Harbaim tiknuha. Because why does the Mechaber say that the b'diavad your yotz if you daven mincha gedola, but the ikazman is from 9.5 hours from mincha katana? Because tfilas mincha keneged Thomas Rabbeinu Harbaim tiknuha uzman shechitasa midaraisa. Hascholosoi achas sheishois. The haschola is sheishos umechza. Dainu chatzi shach chatzos hayom. And that's when you could offer up the Talmud Shalbein Rabbaim. V'rak mishum kadesh yechein lahakriv karbonos yochid mikoidem. And it's just so that you could offer up the karbonos yochid earlier than that. She'icher Talmud she'acher Talmud Shalbein Rabbaim also lahakriv shum carbon. Because after the Talmud Shalbein Rabbaim, you're not allowed to offer up anything. Lochein hoyu ma'acharin hakrivos b'chol yom al teisha shois umechza. So what they did was, since you can't offer up anything after the Talmud Shalbein Rabbaim, they would push that off until Teisha Shas Umechza, Levad Me'erev Pesach, Shechol Yos Be'erev Shabbos. So in order to give them time to do all their other karbonos, they would push off the Talmud Shalbein Rabbaim, as you can't do anything after that. Apart from Erev Pesach, which fell on Erev Shabbos, which is a particularly busy day, in that situation, they would shech the carbon Talmud at 6.5 hours, and therefore, since on a regular day they would push off the Talmud Shalbein Rabbaim, that is the ideal time of doing it, says the Mechaber. However, if you daven from half an hour after Chatzos, you are Yotzei, because the Maisa Minatora, you're allowed to do the Talmud Shalbein Rabbaim then. And there are other Rishonim who say that lechatchila you can go from that time. If a person wants to eat or go on a journey, now you can get a minyan, but if you wait until later, you won't have a minyan. Then everyone agrees that you can daven from half an hour after chatzos. and you're yotze if you daven from that time. Mashma de mikodim lachen lo yotze afilu di'evet. It's mashma that if you daven before the earliest time for mincha, i.e., before half an hour after chatzos, even b'di'evet you're not yotze. However, v'yesh machrin d'srir lehu da'af lechatchila also l'yispal kodim shenishlam chatzi shah la'ajach chatzos mikol makom b'di'evet shispal b'zuach chatzi shah lo yispal shenis. In other words, the earliest time to daven mincha is half an hour after chatzos hayom, which on a 6 to 6 day, which I keep referring to, let's say is 12:30. And really, you could daven from 12 o'clock, because that's when Bein Harabayim is. However, Chazal put a safeguard in that the half an hour that you shouldn't, in the days when you look at the sun and work out, is it Chatzos yet? There's a margin of error, and therefore they gave you this half an hour window. Don't daven before half an hour after Chatzos. The mashmois of the Shulchan Aruch is that if you daven before then, you're not Yetzer. However, if you b'di'evet daven by mistake, you do not repeat your Shemona Esra. Now, it's interesting. When it says you're not half an hour after chatzos, that half an hour after chatzos, what do you mean you can't daven? For example, mincha in the Shabbos and mincha, that everyone makes an early Shabbos. For example, on Shabbos mincha in the winter, the minyanim that you can. This week it's 12:15, then it's 12:30, it goes to 12:45. What should you start? What should you not start before that half an hour? Can you daven Ashrei and Lane and then do Shemona Esra? What's the start off? So if you look at number 8, he says, L'gabe Amiras Ashrei, Kosav Gon Chaim Kanievsky, Shelachatchila Ein Lo Emru Kodim Shah Sheish Mechza. Even Ashrei you shouldn't say. V'tani Sibba Kosav Mincha Sitzchak, Shebeshas Atak Ev Shelahaschal Likri B'Teira Kvar Mechatzos. Maybe on a Tani Sibba, or people need to get home, they're tired, or whatever the reason is, you could maybe do it, that's a dispensation for that. But really it means you shouldn't even begin half an hour before half an hour after chatzos. Interestingly, what if you're in the middle of davening? Someone told me they had this. They were in Haggis. There was a bunch of people there. It was like it was a winter day, and it was like 12:20 or something. And he figured you're okay to do it. So he started, and then they were in the middle. They realized they're actually before the half an hour after chatzos. So what do you do? So if you look at 9. First paragraph, and you suddenly remembered in the middle of your Shemona Esra, you should finish off. Right? Okay. Back to the Mishnah Berurah. I'm 5 lines down on the right-hand column. The Mashe Kosav Ad Halayla Rabbanon, when it says the famous Machlekes, when can you daven mincha till? According to Rabbanon, it's till Laila, and according to the Rabbi Yehuda, it's till Plaga Mincha. When it says Ad Halayla Rabbanon, Lav Dafka, it doesn't mean literally nighttime. Because there are 2, there's Machlekes, what exactly is Ben Hashmoshes, when the Shkia is, and everyone agrees, even the second Shkia, which is a quarter of an hour before night, everyone agrees you can't go beyond that. And everyone agrees from that very late Shkia, that the beginning of the late Ben Hashmoshes, you can't daven then. Okay, good. Gimel, shehu ad soif shezman mincha ktana shtei shoyz umechza, the haloihu mitesha shoyz umechza ad soif yud beis shoyz. V'nimsa the plaga mincha hu shah shlema v'oidrevi. It comes out the plaga mincha is an hour and a quarter or so. Shoyz mani is halachic hours before then. Daled u'mesharin and shah seder. Now how do you judge these hours? They're shoyz mani. They're not 60-minute hours. Hainu kol cheshman hashoyz hanal. Bein mincha gedola, bein mincha ketana, plaga mincha, techashvinish b'shvas hayom, mechalkin hayom. You divide the daylight hours. Bein Orach, bein kol. So whether it's a long day in the summer or a short day in the winter, l'shnei masach halokim, into 12 portions. V'chol chelik nikra shah, and every one of those portions is called the shah zmanis. V'ar pi shoyz elu kovin zman mincha l'chol hanizkalel. And we always use these times to work out the times for mincha and other things. V'sheyud beishos hayom misharin boy yesh machlekas ben apoiskim. This is what I just mentioned. Yesh oimrim techashvina mi amud hashachar tzeisak kichavim. Some say you go from amud hashachar, which is also alois, until nacht, until night time. Or memele Rabbi Yehuda mutar lispal mincha ad shalosh revia kodim tzeisak kichavim. And therefore, according to Rabbi Yehuda, you can daven mincha until 1 1/4 halachic hours before Tzeis, or the Rabbanon at Halayla, and the Rabbanon can go all the way till Tzeis, till night time. V'chanal b'sif cotton, v'kach sos ma'machab, v'simen zeh, v'lesimen reish, v'lesimen tof mem gimel. V'yesh imrim, t'chashvin hayud be'shoas minetz hachamad hashkia also, that you calculate it not from Alois till Nacht, till Tzeis, but rather from Neitz Hachama until Shkia. Umemele Rabbi Yehuda ain't mutar l'spala mincha rak ad shal revia koydem hashkia. You can only daven an hour and a quarter before Shkia. Or Rabbanon after Shkia, and according to Rabbanon ad Shkia. Now, going back to the Mechaber then says on the bottom line, Va'asikna da'avid kamara v'da'avid kamara. But you can choose. Amazing conclusion in the Gemara in Brachas there in Tfilas Hashacha. You want to follow Rabbanon to daven mincha till night time, i.e., certainly not beyond the second Shkia, or according to this the opinion, Neitz the Shkia, not before the first Shkia, whenever the Shkia is. And according to Rabbi Yehuda, you can only daven mincha until an hour and a quarter before that time. And you can choose the Ovid Kamar, the Ovid Kamar. Whichever you want to go like this one, you go like that one, you want to go like that one, you can go like that one. However, for Husha Yasil Olim Kechad Minai, you've got to be consistent. You can't chop and change. Shemoisik Rabbanon Mispal Mincha Dalayla, that you daven mincha after Plaga Mincha and you go all the way till night time, or till Shkia, Shuv Ein Yochel Mispal Avris Min Plaga Mincha Lamala. You can't then daven mincha afterwards. V'moisik Rabbi Yehuda Mispal Avris Min Plaga Mincha Lamala. And if you want to daven Maariv early, like after Plaga Mincha, then Tzarech Lizoy Shlo Yispal Mincha Beis Hashoy. You got to be careful not to daven mincha after Plaga Mincha, because it's a Tarta Desastre it's called. But you can't go like both. Nowadays, says the Mechaber, that we daven mincha until night time. You shouldn't daven Maariv before Shkia, because it shows, it demonstrates a tarata disaster. You're contradicting yourself in your following, whether it be following Rabbi Yehuda or the Rabbanon. And if you did, ben b'diavad you're yeitzeh. You can go daven Maariv miplaga mincha lamala. Says the Ramah, in our countries, in Bnei Ashkenaz, Shenagin, Ispal, Arvis, Miplaga Mincha, we have a minhag to daven Maariv before night, ready from Plaga Mincha. Then Ein Lo Ispal Mincha Achar. You can't daven Mincha after Plag. You can't have it both ways. The Ubediavad, the B'shas Atchag, Gyos Ubediavad, you can. Mispala, then you're Yetze. Mispala Mincha Dalayla, Dahainu Atzei Sakei Chavim. Okay, good. Let's do the Mishnah Berurah on this. The Ovid Kamar Ovid. So we're up to Sif Cotton Hay. Sorry, just one quick Shahat Tzion, very interesting. If you look at Shahat Tzion Ches, Shahat Tzion was of course written by the Mishnah Berurah as well. It's at the bottom there he says, V'nirli, Da'af HaChatzi Shas, this 30 minutes by the way, you shouldn't have mincha before the 30 minutes after Chatzos, is that Shas Manias, or is it 30 minutes literally? Now that's a big nafkamina, because in the winter, Shabbos Mincha, really, if you daven, let's say in the height of the winter, where Chatzos Hayom is in London here is about 11:45. Do you have to wait till 12:15, or could you have mincha at 12:07? Now I'll tell you why it's enough kamina, because we go to shir on Sunday morning in base till 12 o'clock, and we say to the guys, okay, let's have mincha afterwards, and that way they can conveniently have mincha in the winter early. Can you start at 12:07, or should you just wait till 12:15? So says the Shahat Tzion in number 8. I hold, it appears that it shows manis, which is a kula, which means in the winter it can be less. In the summer it can be a chumrah, right? Yeah, but in the winter it's going to be less. And he says it's sarchian. He leaves it sarchian. But if you go to number 14, which you'll find in the back of your book, I'll just read it to you quickly. He says, where is it? 14. Yeah. V'haminag be'eretz Yisrael kosav agarim yechil michul to Kuczynski lechashev es achatz Yisrael lefi shaz manis. The minig in Eretz Yisrael is to shaz manis. Interesting. Ulam betabloy shebeluach hayeshev b'yimos ha'choref chatz Yisrael is 30 minutes. Even though the minig is shaz manis, however, in the calendars there they have 30 minutes in the winter. Over Sefer Bir Halacha, he explains shelo mechashev chatz Yisrael zuz manis lahakel. We don't go lahakel. So you can't be mekel. Okay, and there are others, a machmeh, whatever. You have to ask your local Orthodox rabbi what is the thing to do. But that's the Mishnah Berurah is sarchian, which way you go. But it's just very interesting how you calculate the 30 minutes. The Mishnah Berurah said sarchian. It's short, even though the minig is to do shos monias. But in the winter you don't go less than half an hour. And the Chazon Ish was quite makbid on that. Okay, let's go back to the Mishnah Berurah. So Sif Cotton Hay. Let's try and finish this Sif. The Ovid Kamar Ovid. Now you go like Rabbi Yehuda and you go like the Rabbanan, there's going to be an Akul and a Chumrah. He's going to explain, Hainu. Delinin Mincha Das Rabbi Yehuda, and the Chumrah, it comes out of Chumrah for Mincha purposes. I.e., the Ein Lispal Mincha Rak at Plag HaMincha, you can only daven Mincha until Plag HaMincha according to the Rabbi Yehuda. Alva Memeli Yesh Kula in Maariv, but there's a Kula for Maariv, i.e., that you can daven Maariv early, straight after Plag HaMincha. I.e., here in the Dayanis, when they have Mincha at 6:20, I think it is this evening, they've worked it out that Mincha is before Plag and Maariv is after Plag. That's going according to Rabbi Yehuda. Fine, you're consistent with following him. The Mishon Ve'elech Nechshav Light, because after that, according to Rabbi Yehuda, that's called light. The Indian Sheyuchel is Balat Filas Maariv in terms of Maariv. V'Hainarak Filas Atzma. The Duzman Kriyish Mashalav is the Kulam Be'etz B'Seisa Kechavmu. But for sure, if you daven Mincha early, i.e., after Plag HaMincha, before night, you've got to repeat Shemona Esra after Tzeis, or the Rabbanan have a Kulam. Maariv, sorry, did I say it wrong? Thank you, Yossi. Or the Rabbanon have a kula in Tfilas HaMincha, the Mispal Nadaerev. And the Rabbanon is going to be the other way around. There's a kula that you can daven Mincha until night time. Or Memele Chumra in Tfilas Maariv, the Ein Mispal Kodim Chashecha. But there's a Chumra regarding Maariv that you can't daven before night. Okay, now what should you do? You just follow one. You can daven Kamar Ovid, but just be consistent. La'olam Kachad, Pirush, Shelo Yinog Pam Kach Upam Kach. Mishum to have a tarta desasri. This is the famous tarta desasri. Afilu lemacha, even the next day, even one day this and one day that. In other words, forget on the same day. For sure, that's the problem, right? So therefore, many minyanim, if you work it out, a minyan that davens at 7 o'clock tonight, mincha Maariv. That means you're davening mincha after Plag, which is not like Rabbi Yehuda, you're following the Rabbanan, and you're davening Maariv straight away, which is like, so that's Saturday. So not even when on the same day, but even tomorrow, do every day like Rabbi Yehuda, or every day like the Rabbanan. That's what he's saying. Or Mikol Shekain Shalei Yisbal B'Yom Echad Mincha Acha Plag K'Rabbanan V'Aris Kodim Seisa Kechavim. Okay, Ba'isa Shah. We'll see some heterim later if you can't get a minyan, etc. Ba'isa, or it's the tircha for the tzibur to come later. That's what people rely on generally, and certainly on Kabbalah Shabbos. Kabbalah Shabbos, everyone does it. Because Kabbalah Shabbos, let's say here, is 7 o'clock. So we're mamish doing that. We're davening Mincha after Plag and Maariv before Nacht, before Shkia. So, but so on Erev Shabbos we're sort of makel.
Get around that by just having Mincha early.
Yeah, okay. But how many people do that?
Or just 17, so there's 17, so exactly that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Misha Kibbel of Shah. Yeah, we talk about that. Yeah. Okay, good. Let's carry on. I want to try and finish off the mission on this sif. But Isa Shah. Sif Cotton Zain, Beisa Shah, Filu Kodim Plag HaMincha, Ad Halayla, Rotzalema Ad Ben Hashmoshes Shul Sofik Laila. Tes, Kodim Shkia Sachama, Rotzalema Soif Shkia, Shul Adas HaMachaba B'Siman Reish Samachalav Zman Muat Kodim Seisa Kechavim. Yeah, it's a short time before Seisa Kechavim. V'afal Gav, the Gam Oz Ein Lisval Seisa Kechavim Mamish, the Mekodim V'chen Havirak Sofik Laila, Ochel B'Siman Reish Lamatei, B'hai Purta Lo Dog, yeah, to daven Maariv, at that point we're not so worried. Ulamala Yotza, Avul Kodim Plag, Afilu B'Di'evet Lo Yotza, to daven Maariv before Plag, for sure that's no good. So that's why sometimes, I remember the Dayan, that's how when we were for Maariv on Kabbalah Shabbos, for L'Chadaydi, you can't be Kabbalah Shabbos before Plag, it's like being Kabbalah Shabbos on Tuesday. Right, so he would wait L'Chadaydi, he would look at the clock when they were singing L'Chadaydi, and sometimes he'd wait a few minutes, or he'd speak for a few minutes. The latest plug in the summer in London is 7:37, 7:38 maybe. So you can't be Kabbalah Shabbos before that. So you can start Maariv at 7 or 7:15, Mincha at 7 or 7:15, and you can do Kabbalah Shabbos, that's not a problem. But don't say Boi V'Shalom or Mizmah Shinim HaShabbos before Plag, it's just not shaykh. You can't be Kabbalah Shabbos that early. ולאל מספוי יש דאז בפסקים אימסו פלג המנחה ועל כן יש לסמך להוקר שלא לחשוב לספלל אף אם הספלל שור רביע קודם שקץ החנו. Good. ובשעס הדחק, here we go. רוצה לומר, דאפים הוא דרכו תומד לספלל מנחה אחר פלג, even though you normally follow the Rabbanan, you daven mincha after Plag, מכל מקום יוכל לספלל תפילת ערבית גם כן בזמן הזה, ומכל מקום אין להוקר בזה רק אם על כל פנים באיס היום מספלל מנחה קודם Plag. I only do it really if you daven mincha before Plag that day, אבל אם באיס היום גופה לספלל מנחה אחר, but if that day you daven mincha after Plag, שוב also לספלל ערבית קודם עלי, you shouldn't really daven Maariv before night, daven תרתי סרסי באיס היום גופה, because it's the stira, it's the tarta desasra on that day, וכל זה מספלל ביחיד, that's only if you daven ביחידוס, אבל בציבור, they're not going to come back from Maariv. It's a tircha. And you're not going to get a minyan from Maariv. Yeah. They allow you to have mincha Maariv together. Sif Aleph. Yud Beis. Mincha achakach, rotzolem afilu b'yom acher lo yispal mincha achaplag, given the Talmud machazik as his man, because you are always following Rabbi Yehuda, and therefore you're always davening mincha before plug, and you're davening Maariv afterwards, and for you that's considered the time for Maariv, so you shouldn't really daven mincha then for you after plug. Afilim b'daita v'isayom yispal Maariv al tzesakom, because even you that day will daven Maariv later. Oy b'shas hatchag, rotzolem the kiven shu shas hatchag mutar lechatchila lispal mincha b'shas shenoag ad hayom lispal Maariv. B'shas hatchag you're allowed to. Ukva kosavti b'sivkot yudalav d'yeshel lizoya shel lispal oz Maariv rak achat tzesa kechovim. On that day, make sure you daven Maariv later. Im lo yishuhu b'tzibu v'yeterech lekapsam shenis k'sheyechel kol echad l'beis. Unless it's a problem like we just said. Now, Tahainu ad tzesa kechovim yudalad. Lav dafka literally until night. The erich reva shah kedem tzesa kechovim b'vad ben hashmoshes u'lekulalma. Because approximately 15 minutes before night is ben hashmoshes for everyone. Ve'ein lispal b'ois zman. El rotzolem asomach lezeh v'chein isa b'darki Moshe b'reish lamed beis. V'da. The after mechaber v'rimo mashma de nedon denagim lispal Maariv achat tzesa kechovim mutar lispal mincha afilu achas shkia at somach tzesa kechovim. You can daven mincha till then according to Rabbanan. Now, yesh poskim Rabbi shecholkim b'zeh v'daitam shetfilas hamincha hu rak kedem shkia zachama. That is not till night time, it's before Shkia. Now this is what the Dayan told me, I mentioned the other day. People should be very makbid to daven mincha before Shkia. That means you finish Shemona Esra, and he says in the footnotes, by the way, to finish Chazor Sashat, right, before Shkia. It's better to daven b'yechidus before Shkia than to daven b'tzibur after Shkia. I know there are those who argue with this Mishnah Berurah, and I've heard a certain posek who say that. But anyway, that's what the Mishnah Berurah says. Yeah, the daven b'yechidus before Shkia, then rather than davening with a minion after Shkia. Or b'diavad yuchel smech al das hamakilim lispal lachar Shkia. You can be so mech to daven b'diavad after Shkia. Ad reva shah kedem tzesa, but not only up to a quarter of an hour before night. Kol ma sheyuchel lahagdim mechuyev lahagdim kadesh leikonis besofik ben hashmashos. But you should try and do it earlier to avoid that problem. Ochenim kvar niru kechavim. But if you already seen the stars, kvar ovaz ma mincha bevadai. Then the time for mincha is certainly gone. Tezeu siman laila. But once the stars are out, it's night. Kumavu kol zeh b'siman reish tzadi gimel. Ein shom b'mishnah berurah u'bi halacha. Kol zeh b'diavad. V'shas hagadol. Certainly, one should not try and do mincha, try and avoid davening mincha after shkia. Not to wait that long. They would curse a person or they would criticize a person who would daven Maariv with the sort of the redness of the sky when it's so late in the afternoon, because he might sort of mess up and daven mincha beyond the time. Okay, we'll leave it there.